everybody. I think this is recording. I hope so. Um, so I want to talk today a little bit about the personal narrative essay and how to start the process of writing the personal narrative essay. And several of you during our discussion last class, you were asking about the thesis, about how to come up with the main idea of this personal narrative essay. And so I want to discuss that a little bit. Most of the essays we've read so far that are examples of personal narrative, Memoirs of a Sissy, What is a Hunter, and then the last one, Why I'm a Butch Lesbian. All of those essays, you can see that there was a journey that these writers took, right? Sometimes that journey was over several years, like Memoirs of a Sissy. Sometimes that journey was just in a few hours, like with What is a Hunter. And sometimes it's over maybe a couple of months, like Why I'm a Butch Lesbian. So think about how each of those writers came up with sort of like what they've learned about themselves, like the lesson that they learned or the insight that they were able to articulate. And I want to go through what the first step for me whenever I'm deciding on what to write, and I do a lot of memoir writing and publish a lot of memoir writing. That's what we're talking about, personal narrative memoir writing. The first step for me is always free writing. And I'm going to take you through what I mean. So some of you, if you're thinking about what should I write about this essay, maybe you've had an experience. It could be a traumatic one, it could be a really happy one. Maybe you've experienced something in your life, maybe even relatively recently, maybe with COVID. You've experienced something and you know that it's weighing on you, you know that it's important somehow, you know that it's changed you somehow, right? But you've never really taken the time to figure out exactly how. You've never really been able to articulate in your mind exactly what happened to you or what it means. This is why writing can be very, very powerful. It's a way for you to kind of make sense of the experiences that have happened to you, and also, frankly, to make a story. So a lot of research has backed this up, that what people who have experienced, say, like trauma and war, or maybe a physical assault or a sexual assault, many of these survivors, the way that they're able to process it, the way they're able to get past maybe even like PTSD, is by looking at that experience and speaking it in terms of a story, of like a lesson learned. What did I learn? What's the insight? Because once you start to understand the sort of emotional ramifications of that experience, once you turn it into a narrative, a story, you can deal with it on a real psychological way. So I want to kind of go through something that happened to me recently. If I were given this prompt, and I think I'm going to write this along with you if you don't mind, if I'm giving a personal narrative prompt, I would have to talk about what happened to my daughter the last, about a month and a half ago. My eldest daughter, we were all on a family bike ride, and we went down this long hill that turned suddenly. And as I was going down the hill, I was like, ooh, this is pretty fast. I hope Nora's going to be okay. And I turned around and I watched her as she came down too quickly. And before she made the turn, she braked on her bike and flew over the handlebars and hit her mouth on the curb of the street. And then of course the aftermath. Hi, Nora. What's that? Have I put through? No, I haven't put anything through the wash. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Well, I can Febreze it for you. How about that?
All right.
Okay, bring them down. But I'm in the middle of my Zoom or video. That's okay. That was Nora. Okay, so she hit her mouth, and at the time we didn't realize how bad it was, but it was pretty bad. And since that moment, even a month and a half later, I have trouble sleeping. I have trouble eating because I see it again and again and again and again. I know that something's happened to me. I know it's changed me somehow. I just haven't had the time to process it. Haven't had the time to make sense of what happened to me and to my daughter. So just today, in order to like prepare for this video, I sat down and I free wrote about this experience. And free writing just means that you sit down with a pen and a piece of paper and you just let your thoughts flow, right? My first sentence is, I can't get that image out of my head. That was my first line. And then I just go from there. And what I noticed reading back over this is that I kind of jump. I'm there, and then I jump back a little bit, and then I'm remembering different memories and different things that happened. And so this is not a straight chronological order of those events. This is just letting my mind free. And my pen, I was just writing, trying to keep up with my thoughts. I didn't worry about spelling. I didn't worry about punctuation. I mean, you can see it's kind of it's very messy. There's nothing neat about this. I even have arrows and I've underlined and made things. It's not necessarily the prettiest writing, but it is trying to just let your thoughts flow freely, and then trying to keep up, on paper. This was extremely very, very helpful to me, because a part of me, of course, like, it was traumatic, but why has it affected me so deeply? It wasn't until about halfway through when this is the line, this was my epiphany. When I was watching her go through this, the reason why this image sticks in my brain when she hits her mouth is that I saw it and I was not able to do anything to stop it. Like, I was so powerless, and as a mother, you feel like you should be able to protect your children, that you should be able to foresee the dangers and help them navigate those dangers, help them to avoid those dangers. And it was this paralyzing feeling, because when I came down that hill, I thought, this might not be safe for her. And it wasn't. And it was this just horrifying. And I've never been able to articulate it that clearly before in my brain. Free writing helped me. So now, as a writer, I would take this free write and I would start to think, okay, how do I want to position this paper? I kind of know what the beating heart, the thesis, the main idea, which is one reason I feel so profoundly traumatized by this is because I was powerless to keep my daughter from being hurt. And she's going to suffer the ramifications for this for years, the dental work, the operations that it's going to take, and what that does to my feelings, as a mom. And then when I kept writing, past this moment, and really trying to conceptualize all the details of that moment, what she looked like, what it felt like, I was able to also, though, to kind of realize that at a certain point, I have to put down this guilt, because it's not going to be helpful for my daughter to heal. I have to be strong enough, and she's been so strong and amazing through this whole process, so strong, and I have to be equally strong for her and with her, because I can't, as a mom, as much as I want to, I can't protect her from the world. I can't protect her from being hurt. It's hard, but I can't. What I can do is help her heal from it. I can be a soft place for her to fall. So that's, I know sort of the shape. I kind of know what now the lesson that I learned. I know now what that insight is. And so if I'm going to write about this, I need to start to think about, okay, how I'm going to introduce this. Do I just start with that day? It was this day, we were going on a bike ride, or do I want to start with another kind of introduction that talks about, being a mom and feeling like you should be able to control, feeling like you've got, you're vulnerable because you've got these people you love so much moving around in the world. And that when they're younger, you feel like you can protect them. I don't know yet, so I'm trying to figure that out as I'm going along. I know that at some point or another, this essay is going to have to take a little bit more shape. But I figured out the most important part, which is the main idea, the main insight that I learned. And that can change, as the writing process goes on. But that's the most important first step. So for those of you who are like, how do I begin this? There's a couple of things. You can either think about something that you've learned about yourself. You start with the insight and think about the experiences that led to that insight, or you can start with the experience and try to figure out what it is that you learned from that experience. So there are a couple of different ways of going about this. Probably my essay is most of the action is going to be what happened that night, and then perhaps the weeks following and where I am now, if that makes sense. So it's probably going to cover about a month and a half total, but the main sensory details are going to be when she hit her mouth, those feelings, rushing her to the hospital, that kind of thing. So, hi honey. So that's I'm hoping that's going to be helpful. So for this next assignment for Wednesday, what I need you to do is sit down and do some sort of free writing. Again, you could either say like, I know that I've learned this about myself. How did I get there? You know, or you can start with an experience that you've had and you haven't quite made sense of it yet. But I want you to start to free write about possible topics and experiences or lessons that you've learned that you think you might like to write about. Now, this is not set in stone, so you can definitely change your mind. This is just to get sort of the wheels moving. So to that end, each of you, I'd like for you to either sit down and write. I'm a writer. I like to write things out in hand. Or to type out some sort of free write. Give yourself at least 5 or 10 minutes to really let all those ideas flow. Again, don't censor yourself. Whatever comes out, comes out. And then on Wednesday, you can either like take a picture of the free write and upload that as a JPEG, or you can, you know, copy and paste the type. If you are a typer, you can type out your free write. I'm not necessarily going to even be reading these very carefully. This is mostly for you. I just want some evidence that you've done some sort of free writing, okay? And I'm hoping that this will help you kind of articulate the beating heart of this paper, sort of the main idea, the main insight that you came to and that you've learned. So I'm hoping that's helpful. I will see you all on Wednesday. Have a very good Labor Day weekend. Bye-bye.